Okay, it has started. So I'm going to introduce myself, tell you a little bit about myself growing up. So I'm Daniel Vasquez, 62 years old, and I was born April 14th, 1957, in a little town called Willard. And I have some siblings. There's Daryl, Darlene, Donna Ray, and Delia. And we grew up on a migrant farm. And what a migrant farm is when you get different. It says it's drought. Okay, came back. But on the migrant farm, what they do is they have people coming from different parts of the country, specifically Mexico, that picks and weeds and does all the stuff for the farmers and harvests when they harvest crops, planting crops, doing whatever is necessary. So there was about, I'm thinking about 3,300 acres, and there was a lot of land. And beside this little road that you had to go down to, there was what we call the ditch. But basically, it was a canal that water fed through there, and then they would suck the water out to water the plants. And the main produce that was grown in this migrant farm was onions. And this little migrant farm supplied 1/3 of Ohio's onions. So that's a lot of onions. And I tell you, when I was growing up, I didn't like onions. I like them now, but when I was growing up, I couldn't stand it. So we lived on this farm, and when the first memories that I have is this building that we lived in. It's called a round top, and it was probably about the size of your garage. And the reason it was called a round top was because the roof was round. It was from the bottom of the ground to the other side. It was just round, and there was one little unit about the size of your garage, and we'd put blankets or sheets across to divide it. And you would have a kitchen in the back, and then makeshift beds and whatever. There was no TV, nothing like that. And when it was time to take a bath, we took a bath in one of those big round tubs. They'd heat up the water, put it in there, and throw your little body in there. And you'd scrub up, and everybody had to take their turns. So they had one door in the back, one door in the front, and then 2 windows on the front of the building. And there was like 14 of them. And that's where all the migrants lived. And your water, you had to go to a well to get your water. And you get a bucket and you go to this well, you turn on the spigot, fill it up, and take it over there, and that was your water. And it was awesome water. I mean, this was perfect water. Didn't have that eggy smell and that I got at my house. So I remember growing up there and seeing a lot of different things happening. Probably about Reed's age. Some of the things that caught my attention was the Mexican people. They liked to eat goat. Goat was like golden. So if somebody got a goat, it was party. And it was kind of sad because, they have the goat tied up, and, you kind of make friends with him, but he's going to be dinner. So I remember one time I went to the goat to go pet him, and he was cool for a minute, and then he walked away, and I, looked at him, and I turned around, and then he charged at me and gave me a headbutt in the butt and knocked me down to the ground. I was crying and everything because I got scared. And I'll never forget that part. But then it was time for din din, and then I got to see some ugly stuff at your size. You know, I saw the killing of this goat. I saw them take him apart, and next thing you know, he's being barbecued. And I'm still freaked out about today.
That's what you get.
Because the thing is, they would cook the head too. So they would put the head in a pot or a pan, and then they cover them up with foil and throw some vegetables with them, and they'd go bake his little brains out. And then, when it was time to eat, you know, everybody cut up the stuff, and we had all kinds of other stuff with it. But then they would take out this goat head, and then you got to go over there and peel off a piece of meat and chow down on them. And then everybody was fighting to eat the eyeballs. And I never tried the eyeballs, but everybody said that was the best part. And I go like, ain't happening. I'm not eating eyeballs. So, lived there for several years, and then for some reason,
when you were there at the that age and time frame with all the same migrant folks, did everybody just speak Spanish, or you speak English, or both?
some of them spoke English, broken English, but the majority of them didn't. And we didn't speak Spanish in our household. We didn't do it. It was frowned upon. They wanted us to speak as much English as possible. So, like I said, lived there for several years. I can remember, and it's black. Does that mean anything when the screen's black? Oh,
It's probably.
so we moved to this little town called Tyro, and my dad was a truck driver. And by the way, my dad, his name was Joseph Vasquez, and my mom's name was Josephine. So we moved to this house in Tyro, and it was kind of unique because it was basically for cattle. They bring the cattle in, then they gather them up, and they ship them out, and get more cattle in. But there was chickens there was pigs there, tons of cats, and the house was huge. It looked like an old mansion, and it was huge. We used to, when we were kids, we used to think that it was a hotel. We'd play and pretend it was a hotel because there were so many rooms. And there were so many rooms. I mean, we didn't even have things in some of the rooms because we'd have one room where we have our toys in, another room for a bedroom, and it was just huge house. And it had a big, long staircase coming down, and as kids, we'd always be sliding down the railing. I mean, that was just everyday deal. Nobody cared, but that's what we did. And we entertained ourselves being outdoors, and there was, like I said, there was pigs there. There were big pigs, and there was little piglet guys. And every once in a while, they'd escape, and they'd be running everywhere. And the next thing you know, my dad would be calling us, "Go get the pigs!" So we're out there running, chasing pigs, and trying to catch them, and get the little guys in there squealing and whatever. And we'd take them, and we'd have to be careful because the mamas, I mean, they were huge, and they would try to bite you because we'd have one of their babies. And then they had baby calves. And my cousin and I, because they keep the calves in like in a little small corral area. And my cousin and I, we'd go in there and we'd get on the rafters and hang off the rafters, and then we'd fall down on the calf and ride the calf. And we'd go crazy on this calf. And we'd do that until we got busted. So we couldn't do that anymore. But again, we had thousands of cats, it seemed like. I mean, cats galore. I remember normally during the holidays like Easter and stuff, they would give you a little purple chickie or a yellow one, we'd all have chicks, and we loved our little chickens, and one of the cats ate mine. Not happy about that. I seen him chasing them, and I went going to get him, and it was too late. He had him in his mouth, and off he went. So I lost my little birdie. So we played with GI Joes. We had soldiers and GI Joes, and they had dug this trench in the back. I don't know if they were trying to put some pipes in or whatever, but they dug this big trench and had a big old pile of dirt. And that's where we played our GI Joes and our soldiers. We'd set them up in there, and we'd have the battles, and then we'd get our hands on some firecrackers and make real explosives, blow the guys up, So we were just having a blast. And this house, it was heated by coal. And so a truck would come in, and it would go bring a chute down the back of the window, and they would unload the coal. And somebody would be down the bottom, and they'd be shoveling it, stacking up in the piles. And then in the wintertime when we need it, we'd get a bucket, go down there, and we'd have these chunks of coal, and we'd throw it in this, it was like a potbelly stove, and that heated this whole house. That's all the heat we had was coming from this stove. And so we were constantly taking turns throwing coal in there. And I remember going down in the basement, and I was getting my bucket of coal, and I seen this little thing moving around. I go, what is that? Well, I didn't know. I mean, I'd never seen one before. Come to find out, it was a salamander. So he was down there, living down there. What's a salamander doing in the basement? And we had this dog. His name was Blackie. He was a black dog. I don't know what breed he was, but he was black. He did not like cats. He took care of the population pretty quick, and the way he would do it, if he saw a cat, he would go capture him, and then he'd put him on the ground, pin him down, and then he would sit on him, and just sit on him until he suffocated. He'd just sit there looking around and check on the cat, and he'd be squiggling a little bit, and he'd just sit a little bit more, and then he'd get up, and the cat wasn't moving anymore. But that was Blackie's job, baby. He just loved doing that. He didn't like cats at all. And oh my gosh, there was just so many things going on. I remember my mom going to like a shed in the back where all the chickens were at. Every morning there, she'd go be there grabbing eggs, getting fresh eggs out of there. And yeah, we had a lot of eggs, and we had chickens, and it was a good time. And we went to Catholic school, and they were pretty strict. They were real strict. You had to do your Hail Marys and do your prayers in the morning, and if you got in trouble, it was not pretty. If you got in trouble, they would have you stick your hands out like this, and they would slap the back of your hands with a ruler. Pow, pow, pow. And I'm thinking like, where's God? Help me. And then if you got even more severe, they would put rice on the floor, and you would have to kneel on the rice for half an hour, just kneeling on the rice. They were strict. I mean, they weren't playing around. So there was a lot of adventures there, and again, I was always raised out in the country, and like I said, we didn't have a TV or anything. Like seldom we listened to the radio, but the family would come from Texas. My dad's brothers and sisters would come and visit, and they would bring my cousins, and it would just be, this house would be just gangbuster. We'd have 30 people in this house, and we would just have parties. So we'd be dancing. I mean, we had this room. It was so huge. It was like a ballroom, and they'd put on the music and people would start dancing, and I was just, like I said, about his age, and I'd be dancing with my grandma, you know, because she'd be sitting there all nimble and whatever. Come on, Grandma, let's shake it. So Grandma and I'd be out there dancing. And yeah, we
What
had
kind
a
of
lot.
music were you having for that?
We were listening to Mexican music. It was Mexican music, and it was all either the big vinyl records or it was the 45s. And I was normally, most of the time, I was in charge of the music. I was the guy that put the needle on it. That was my job. But then, I think when I was around 10, that's when my dad got me a BB gun. Got me a BB gun, and then shortly after, I got my brother a BB gun. And we were just shooting everything up. Basically, we were shooting up our toy soldiers. You know, because we were, like I said, we used that big mound of dirt, set up little encampments, and then we go someplace and start shooting them. You know, like they're being bombarded. So, yeah, we were very entertained with all that. We didn't have bicycles, and well, we did have a tricycle, but it was deadly. I mean, you just ride it and you crash. You know, so not too many people rode it. Too deadly. And then, yeah, so we'd shoot cans, and next thing you know, I was shooting birds up. Shooting birds here, shooting birds there, and that was a thing of joy at that time. Was killing creatures, and anything that moved, kill it. So my dad got mad with the Catholic Church, and so we went back to the migrant farm. And now, at this time, they started building cinder block houses. So you know what a cinder block is? It's a cement block. It's about this big, about that big, and they built the whole house. You had a concrete floor, and you had the cinder blocks, and you had maybe 1 or 2 bedrooms in there. You had a kitchen, a living room, and a bathroom. And you had this little dinky shower, and but I didn't know any different. We didn't even know what carpet was. We didn't know what vinyl was. We didn't know all we knew was concrete floor. We had floor, and in the round top we had wooden floor, just slats of wood there. So now I was going up on this migrant farm, and there's, like I said, acres and acres and all kinds of creatures. I mean, it was growing up there. There was any kind of creature you could think of. I mean, there was muskrats, groundhogs, snakes, frogs, crayfish, leeches, and I played with all of them. The first time I got a leech on me, I was freaking out. And the way I had them was, I was in the ditch, I had my tennis shoes on, and we were wading in the ditch. We were catching minnows and catching baby crayfish. The mother would have crayfish, and there'd be a bunch of little ones, and we'd catch them. And we'd have nets. And I'd be walking out there with the tennis shoes, and then I came home, and I was taking off my shoes and socks, and I had this big leech on my ankle, and he was big and ugly, and I go, whoa. So what they did, believe it or not, is to get it off, all they did was sprinkle salt on him. As soon as they sprinkled salt on me, he just curled up and let go of me, but I had a nice little hole there. And that was my first leech. And then the second leech I got on me, he was near my toes. I don't know, he was just a little guy. And so I already knew what to do, is just throw some salt on him and he releases you. But we'd go fishing in there, and there was what you call suckerfish. There wasn't any particular breed, it was just what we called suckerfish. But they had carp in there, and these carp were monster carps. I mean, they were monster carps. And I'd have a little fishing pole, and I'd go in there and go fishing, and I'd catch monster carps, and I'd bring them out, and take them to the family just to show them. And then I'd take them, throw them back in there, and we didn't eat any of the fish. We just, as kids, we just played. And then we had some monster turtles. Oh my gosh! And they were snappers, and they were some big ones. And there was this concrete. I don't know how it got in there, but it was like a barrier, and it was fell into the ditch, and it was cracked, and the water would flow in between it. And when the water was low, you could jump across back and forth on the different spots. And I was laying there one time, looking at the water, looking at the little minnows fish on top, and all of a sudden, probably about the size of this microphone, this head comes up right beside me, and I'm going like, whoa! And I was thinking it was a big giant snake. I mean, like I said, the head was as big as this microphone, and I just like freaked out, and I'm telling everybody, oh man, wow. So here comes the brigade, our little gang. There's about 5 of us, and we're gonna find out. We're gonna get this thing, because that's what we did. We're gonna get them. So we got sticks and we got all kinds of stuff, trying to probe, trying to figure out where this guy's at, sticking it in. Every once in a while his head come back up and then go back down. So my friend, his name was John, he had this big metal rod, this big heavy metal rod, and he's slamming down there, and crunch, he hit something. So then we start wiggling around, and he lifts it up, and here's this huge snapping turtle. He had cracked in the back of the shell, and he was mad. He was just snapping at everything, and we got him out, got him to the land, and then somebody went and got a broom handle. He got a broom handle, and he got a hold of that and snapped that. Was holding on to that, and then that's how we took him out. We were carrying him, and he was hanging on the end of the broomstick, and he was just, he was just mad. And we took him across the road onto the main grassy area wherever we lived, and here comes the Mexicans. They come out. They go, I want to eat him. I want to eat him.
Oh my God.
I want to eat him. I'll cook him. I cook him. Take him. So they did. The next thing you know, we got this shell of this big turtle. There's nothing left but a shell. The guys took and ate them because they love turtle soup. I guess there's supposed to be different flavor of meats in they like chicken and some other stuff. But so he didn't go to waste. I mean, fed somebody that day. And then I had a dog as I was getting around your age, 12 now. I had my favorite dog, Chato. Chato was with me everywhere I went. Me and my BB gun and Chato. And we go walking down the long side of the ditch, or we go walking into the woods, or we go walk. I mean, and he was with me all the time. So the one time I was down in the ditch, and I had my BB gun with me. There was this black thing, and it was probably about this big, and it looked like it was a tire to a toy tractor. I'm going like, I mean, I'm way down the way from the farm, away from everybody. This is out in the wilderness. And I'm thinking, what's this black tire doing out here? I'm thinking like, what that's all about. And I go to get it, to pick it up so I could look at it, and it was a black snake. And all of a sudden he went crazy. He just lunges at me, and then Chato got a hold of him. As soon as he lunged at me, Chato got a hold of him and just started shaking him down, shaking him, throwing him up in the air. I bet you he threw him up 20 feet in the air. Just launched him. And he come back down, hit the ground, and Chato go after him again, shake him all up again, throw him back in the air. And I wish I could videotape some of the stuff that he did. But Chato was like that. He protected me. He protected me against at least 2 snakes that I know of. That was the one, like I said, I actually grabbed the snake and and he went crazy. But there was another time when we were walking by the reservoir, and I didn't see the snake coming towards me, and he did, and he jumped on that one, and the same thing, just started shaking them all up, throwing them around. And he wasn't afraid. Chato was not a very big dog, but he was not afraid of anything. I mean, he took on German Shepherds. He fought every dog in the farm. That was his job. He just walk around, and just strut, and just get tore up. And he'd have 2 or 3 dogs on at one time, and he'd be fighting them. He didn't care. And we'd have to go out there and try to break them up. We'd throw hot water on them, cold water on them, take broom handles and smack on them. Stop! Yeah. So there was always dog fights going on out there. And at one time I was trapping groundhogs. The groundhogs, farmers don't like groundhogs because they do a lot of damage to the crops. I mean, they do a lot of damage to the irrigation systems and this and that. So it was open game to, you see the groundhog, kill them. So I set up a couple of traps, and I would put a metal stake in there and have a chain tied to it. And I found a nice hole, and I put the trap at the end of the hole. And the one day I went over to go check on the trap, I noticed that the trap wasn't there, and the chain was extended. And I'm thinking, like, where did it go? I mean, because there was a big hole there, and that's why I set the trap there. And I'm going like, where did that trap go? So I reached down to grab the chain, and here comes this groundhog. He comes running out, and he's caught, and he's mad. He is mad. And guess what? Chato was there. And he got him back by the head and was just shaking him, fighting him. And like I said, Chato was just there. The best dog ever in the world. And I got only one picture of him. Got one picture of him. So every time you hear, you can ask your aunts about Chato. They'll tell you stories about Chato. And he was an outdoor dog. I mean, he ran. We didn't have to worry about fleas, and didn't have to worry about him running away and not coming back, because he always came back, and sometimes he came back pretty tore up. I mean, I seen him with his eye cut here, his legs all shredded, and so I know he was tangling with somebody. Then around 13 years old, that's when I started working on the farm. And my responsibilities was, I was put in what's called the weeding gang. And when you're out in the fields, you got these rows of onions at the time. And you'd take 4 rows, and you'd go in the middle of these 4 rows, and any little weed that you saw, you had to pick it out. Sometimes they were little, sometimes they were big, but they really didn't use the herbicides. They relied, and there was probably 15 to 20 people in these weeding gangs, and so we'd be all lined up, and we'd start going through our rows, and it was, when you started, by the time you got to the other end, you had walked a mile, or you would crawl a mile, because sometimes it get really dense, and you'd be picking, and be crawling instead of standing up trying to do it. And then you'd be doing it during the summertime, and it'd be hot. There'd be no wind or nothing, it'd be hot. And then you'd still be working when it was raining. They'd give you a rain suit, and it'd be muddy and ugly, but you'd be still crawling out there doing it. And my mom, she was a fairly large woman, and she did it. She was out there doing that same stuff, crawling around, but she'd come home and she'd have blisters on her knees from crawling. And then she'd come home and get cleaned up and start making us dinner. So Yeah, she was a tough worker, and my dad was a tough worker too. He was out there in the fields, planting and doing the stuff that needed to be done. So I did that for a while, and then I got graduated to the guy behind the. Well, wait. First of all. Yeah, I got graduated to the water boy, and no, I couldn't have done. Yeah, I did because I started driving when I was 13 years old, and my mom taught me how to drive. There was an instance that came up with my dad, and I had to drive because he couldn't. And I never drove before in my life. He just said, "You're driving." Okay. And it was an automatic, it's called 3 on a tree, where you had to shift on the steering column. You had to shift the 1 down to start, up 2, down 3. I didn't know that. I never did that before. So and then you got to press on the clutch, give it gas, and do all that stuff. So when I was first doing it, and I was in the little town of Plymouth. It was a little town. I mean, it was like a village. And when I started off, I was going boom, 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 and I went like that basically the whole way home, just clunking along. And so I got home. Don't know how. And at that time, there wasn't that many cars around in the country. But I got home. My mom was really, really mad at my dad, and. The next day, that's when she took me out. Said, "I'm going to teach you how to drive." She took me out in the boonies, and she stayed with me till I got control of it. So at 13 years old, I didn't have a driver's license, but I could drive. And then I got a big head, and I started driving to junior high school. So I'd take the car, and I'd go pick up my buddies. We're in the 7th grade, and I'm driving to school. And I park in the teacher's parking lot. And I would go inside, and school was out. We'd all run out there and get in my car and take off before anybody saw us. Go drop them off, and I go home. And my mom and dad, they didn't worry about it. They weren't nervous about it. It was, do what you gotta do, boy. So I started early driving. So when I was working in the fields, and then I graduated to the water boy. And what the water boy's job was, everybody wanted that job. And you got to drive a Jeep, and this time it's a stick shift and there. And what you did is you had like 4 to 6 tanks that you would pump up. And what you do is you would open them up, clean them up, fill them in with the water, and then you would go out to the migrant field, and then you'd go to the migrants and you'd squirt them, give them some water. And that's all you did. That's all you did all day long, was just squirt people, give them water, go back, empty them out, clean them up, fill them up, go back. And then it wasn't just the migrant workers that were walking, because you would have to do the guys that were driving the tractors, and because we didn't have water bottles and all that stuff. And so if you were a water boy, you were golden. Because all you did was drive, and it was just it was cake, and it was a blast. And you going down the fields, just burning it up. So after I graduated from the water boy, then I went to behind the harvester when the harvest time was. And what they do is they have this machine. They would have a tractor, and they have the machine, and it would go in there, and it would take the onions and dig them up, and it would take them up this conveyor and it'd shake them, and it has this blower. This blower would blow this air, and then the onion top would go like this, and then there was a mechanism in there that would cut the top off, and then it would roll into the top that got cut off would blow out the back end, and the onion would fall into another conveyor, and they would load into a wagon. So every once in a while, an onion would get blown out the back. So what you had to do, if you were following behind a harvester, all you did was walk behind the harvester, pick up the onions and throw it over, so when they came back the other way, they'd pick that onion up. So all you do is walk, picking up onions, throwing them, pop. And that was a cake job. Then when you got to the end, when the harvester had to turn around and go the other way, you get on the harvester and chill out, relax, while they're doing it. It takes them about 10 minutes to make that turn. And then if they had to stop for maintenance, then you were responsible for greasing the gears and oiling this. And if something broke down, you would have to go retrieve a tool. So that was a fun part, being behind the harvesters. I mean, but the thing is, you'd have that what you call muck, and it's that black soil, and it means black. And the soil, when you're behind the harvester, if you get too close to it, it blow on you. So at the end of the day, your whole face and arms, everything would be black with this muck. So you go home and take a shower, you just watched all that stuff come right off. It was crazy. But I mean, like I said, it was a lot of fun doing that.
How much do they pay you to do all that?
Ooh. See, when I first started, I think I was making 80 cents an hour. That's what I was making, 80 cents an hour. What a deal. Yeah. That was a good time. So at the end of the week, when you get your check, it was like $32. And I felt like a millionaire. I got $32. What can I buy? You could buy all kinds of stuff.
So they did cut you a check and they just hand you cash?
No, they had a check for you.
Huh.
Yeah, that was cool. But so, let me go back a little bit. So when I was in grade school, in the 6th grade, at this little school, at the grade school, you'd have to buy your lunch. And when I first went there, this is the first time I went there, about Reed size. And the first time I went to school, my mom packed us lunches. You know, and we're pretty, like I said, we're backwards. There's a lot of stuff we didn't know. So she would make us tortillas with egg and potato. You cook the potatoes, cook the egg in it, put it in a tortilla, which today is now a burrito, but that's what she would make us. And we went to school, and we got picked on. I mean, the other kids were like, "What are you eating? What's that? Oh, that's nasty." And I stopped. I wouldn't take a lunch anymore because I felt bad. That was bullying then. But I think about it now. I said, like, dude, everybody's eating Mexican food now. Yeah. I was the first. And then when you were in the 6th grade, you were assigned a week. Everybody in the class would serve food down in the kitchen for a week. So let's say they picked me right before they start cooking and whatever, they would send me down, and then I would be there and I would help. I would help get the trays ready. I'd help do the dishes, help with whatever they needed. And you would get paid 10 cents for every day that you worked. And the cooks loved me. The cooks, they just loved the death of me because I was just a king washing dishes. Because we at that time we had, silverware, had the real silverware, and so I had to wash them up. So I had no problem washing dishes, and serving up the food, helping serve up the food. So you were out of class for a couple hours, go back to class. The next day you do it for a week at a time, and you get 10 cents a day that you did that. So at the end of the week, you made 50 cents. So I was making money. But then going back to the migrant farm, then after I graduated from being behind a harvester, then I became the lawn boy. And there was like, I'm going to say about 19 acres that I had to mow. So I had to mow around all these houses, and I had to mow around all the buildings, and I had big open areas. And I had to actually get on a tractor, big tractor with what they call gang mowers in the back. And I had to go back and forth, and then trim. And by the time you finished, you'd have to start all over again. And the owner of the migrant farm, he was kind of not a good guy. He was kind of a bad boss. I mean, he was very strict. And he would go out there and he would have a tape measure. And he would go out there after you made a pass, and he'd take his tape measure and measure the length of the grass. And if it was too high or too short, he'd chew you out. Because he wanted it at a certain height, and that's the way he wanted it all the time. So you have to go there and make the adjustments on the gang mowers. Well, I got him mad one time. And you've seen these big warehouse buildings out in the country, big warehouse buildings. Well, we didn't have electric weed whackers and all that. All we had was a weed whacker, the actual metal weed whacker. So he was mad at me. So he had me go around the building using this weed whacker to cut all the grass down. So that's what I did for like 2 days, nothing but weed whacking around the building. That was my punishment.
So it was like a little sickle, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
So it was a little curved hand tool that you swung around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like trying to mow a football field with scissors.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like that. But I was in charge of, if my mower went down, I had to take it apart and put it back together, change spark plugs, do whatever I had to do, then maintain it and change oils and do the same thing with the tractor. So I did that.
How old were you then?
I was probably 16 at the time. And then I graduated to actually hauling onions. So I got my own tractor, and what we do is we'd hook up a wagon to it, then we go out there to the harvester, and then we drive along while they filled up the wagon, filled it up with onions, and then you drive back, take it to the one place, they would unhook it, hook you up with another wagon, and off you went again. And then they would maneuver it and then load these onions onto a conveyor belt and fill up this warehouse. I mean, they'd fill it to the roof with onions. I mean, to the max. So
1/3 of Ohio.
yeah, and so that was a lot of fun driving. I had a John Deere 4020. I'll never forget it. And it had all these different gears on it for low, high, different speeds. And I love my John Deere. That was so cool. But sometimes we'd have areas in this muck that got saturated. And if you weren't paying attention and you drove into it, you'd sink down. And I sank down in one. And I had 4 tractors pull me out. That's how buried I was. And
How did they like put 4 in a row and link them all together?
oh, they got them all. They had them all different angles.
Really?
Yeah, and they all just pull at one time, and I'm going giving it gas and to get out of there. And well, just so happened the mean boss happened to drive by when I was getting pulled out. He didn't say anything to me then. He said it when it was payday. So I'll never forget. So he was giving my check, and he says, "You know you got one of my tractors stuck." Yeah, I did. That took too much time. It wasn't my fault. And then, a couple weeks later, there was a young guy about my age. So we had young guys were going in and out with tractors and whatever. And he came around the corner too fast. And the wagon with the onions flipped right into the ditch. So the whole bunch of onions were floating in the water. This wagons in the water, and he didn't get nothing said to him. I'm like, must be a Mexican thing. Well, like, I can't understand, because they had to get a wrecker, and the wrecker to pull that wagon out, and then all those onions were a waste. They were gone. They were lost. So, but that was a good time there. I used to run. There's a reservoir there, and it's 1.7 miles all the way around. And I used to run it without stopping. And then after a while, then I'd do it 2 times without stopping. The most I did was 9 times without stopping. Just run. There was a bunch of us. We were just running like nobody's business, running. And I met my buddy, and I were up there one day, and here comes these 2 girls on horses. We're up there, and these 2, and they're cuties. And I go like, "Well, how you doing?" And we're talking, and she said, "You want to ride?" I said, "Sure." And I didn't know nothing about riding horses. And she didn't have a saddle. It was all bareback. And so I get on there with her, and she takes off. I mean, she has this horse going full throttle around this reservoir. And we go make that first turn, and I'm thinking I'm going to fly off. I mean, I'm holding on to this horse like, dude. And I mean, she just got this horse going full throttle. And I was scared. But I didn't let her know that. So yeah, we became friends. And come to find out, her and her sisters were the daughters of this old farmer. And he did a lot of hay and alfalfa for horses and cows and stuff like that. And they were the girls that would go in the back and take the bales of hay and put them on top of the wagons. You see them working out in the field doing that. Well, that's what her and her sister would do. And I'm thinking like, wow, they're tough girls, you know. But like I said, we had a lot of good fun. After, you know, but the dad kiboshed. He said like, "Stay away from my daughters." Okay. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So one of the other things, then at harvest time, after we did potatoes too. We didn't do as massive amounts of potatoes as we did onions, but we did do potatoes. And what they do is, when the potatoes come in, you have to harvest them, and you got to package them. You got to send them out. Like you can't store them very long. They got to go. And they would put them in. They put them in 10-pound bags, 25-pound bags, 35-pound boxes, and 50-pound bags. And that's how they would ship them. So I'd go to school, and after I get out of school, then we go and we'd load semis. And what they do, they'd have these potatoes on these pallets. We'd be in the trucks, and they would start throwing whatever size it was. It'd be the 10-pound, boxes or whatever. And then we'd be on top. We'd grab it and stack it, grab it, stack it. There'd be 2 in the truck and 2 in the bottom. I mean, they'd just load this conveyor up. I mean, you're like now. And we'd load up a whole semi. And we'd do that all night long. And then when you're doing them 50-pound bags, I'm telling you what, I turned into a little Hulk. Because I had muscle, dude. I was tough. Because after handling all that, lifting all the time, I had no problems in school. Yeah, because when we would have gym class, and we had to do certain exercises, we'd have to, I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, but there'd be a pegboard. And you got round pegs, and what you'd have to do is you'd have to stick them in there and climb up. Well, that was nothing for me. And then the rope, you had to climb all the way to the ceiling. There was a bunch of us that we would just use our arms. We didn't even use our legs. We just use our arms and climb up there and climb down.
Before American Ninja Warrior was even a thing.
Yeah.
Grandpa Dan was doing it.
So then in wrestling class, or gym class, we'd have wrestling, and we had some tough guys. They were bullies. I mean, bullies. They'd pick on people, and they would fight just because they wanted to fight. That was their nature. They just want to fight. And so I'd be wrestling with them, and I was staying right with them. They didn't mess with me because I was buffed up enough. But I seen some crazy stuff. I seen a guy, he was at the bottom of the steps, and the guy was on the top of the steps. There was probably maybe 5 steps in between them, and this guy just jumped on top of the other guy and just started beating him on him. And that's how it was in school. I mean, it was, if you made an enemy, there was no, it was a fight. It was on, and they didn't care who was around. And at that time, they'd paddle you. They'd take you in the principal's office and they'd give you a paddling, and that didn't stop anybody, And yeah, there were some brutal. I had one guy that was after me. For some reason, he wanted to fight me so bad. And one day, I was at my locker, and I was either getting books or putting books away, one or two, and he comes up behind me. He goes, "I'm getting you tonight after school, bud." I go, "What?" He says, "I'm getting you tonight after school." Okay. And so one of the migrant people that was going to school, who was older than I was, he seen that I was a little frustrated. He goes, "What was that all about?" "Oh, he wants to fight me after school." "He does?" I go, "That's what he told me." He said, "Okay." It didn't happen because he went and talked to that guy. Because he was bigger than that guy, and says, "You don't mess with him, or you're going to mess with a bunch of us." And that's the way it was. We took care of each other like that. And the girls were the same way. The girls were pretty tough too. They were pretty tough. And I had a lot of fun with the migrants that came in there, because a lot of them, like I said, they were young. I mean, there's one family that had like 7 kids, all different sizes. And the one girl, she could barely speak any English, and she would always work beside me, and she'd be looking at me and "How's this?" And she would ask me. So every day I would teach her a new word. We'd practice on that word, and so I was teaching her English. And I remember they never played football before. They didn't know anything about football, and we were always doing. We had softball going, volleyball going, football going. So she wanted to play. Her and her family. We had like 30 kids, different ages and teenagers and whatever. And at first we were just playing touch, tag, And so you're running and you just tap somebody and you do the play over again. Well, she was playing, and for some reason she got the football, and I was chasing her, and I tapped her on the butt. That was the way the game played. Well, she didn't like that. She turned around, stopped, and started kicking, punching me, and all kind of. Whoa! You don't understand the game. This is what you do. She was just tearing me up. But it was brutal, because sometimes we had, how dry it's been and the ground gets so hard. There's times we play tackle football. We don't have gear. We don't have padding or whatever, and we'd be tackling each other on this hard ground. I'm surprised we didn't break bones and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, we had a lot of activities going on. We'd have tournaments, volleyball, just brutal, softball. I mean, some of these guys could throw the softball. I mean, and you'd catch it, and you'd have to throw your glove off because your hand was so hot after it hit it. And these guys, I mean, they just rocketed it, and it was. But the thing is, what I gathered, or what I really enjoyed, was out there. Everybody took care of each other. Everybody shared food, and everybody took care of everybody. And we had the immigration come in, and we'd hide people in our attic. And then we see some of them, you know, off they go. They're gone. But they'd be back a week later. You know, how did that happen? So we'd see stuff like that. And and we did grow some carrots. We did grow some carrots too, and I enjoyed weeding carrots because you'd start off in the morning, and you take your rows and and the carrots are growing pretty big. So what you do is you grab
this. You told me that story about they came back a week later. That reminded me of this.
Can't see it, it's all blurry.
Oh, okay.
It's all fuzz.
All right. Guess they don't get to see it.
They did some carrots, and the carrots would be almost mature. And so when you're going down the roads weeding them, you take a carrot out, and you got the dew on the tops of them, and you just start shaking it through the tops, and it cleans it all off, and then you're walking down the field eating a carrot. So you were getting a snack and all that stuff. You know, so it was good. Yeah, I recommend it to anybody that could do it and hang in there. We had a lot of, sorry to say this, a lot of white people that didn't make it. They'd only make it a couple hours and they were gone. First break, you didn't see them anymore. Or after lunch, they were gone, never came back. But they would get fried too. They would be out there without, and we didn't have suntan lotion and all that stuff because you see how dark I am now. And I mean, I was chocolate, and they'd be yelling. I mean, you put a shirt on. I ain't putting no shirt on. And you see the Mexican ladies, they'd have a big hat. They have long sleeve shirts on, rubber gloves. I mean, they weren't going to mess around in the sun, and that's the way they were. And we had Mexican dances, like at least twice a year. Once before the harvest, before they start harvesting, because they'd have the buildings that would be empty, these huge buildings, and then they would get a band, and then they would take a bunch of pallets, they would stack them up, and then they put paper on it, and so it'd be benches so people could sit down on them, and it was just party, people dancing and just having a good time. And they would do that, like I said, before the harvest and normally after the harvest.
You got your glass of water there if you want.
No, I'm good. So one of the bad things. Oh, so one of the migrants that came in, his name was Gregory Vasquez. And the first time I met him, we're looking at each other, and I said, "You're not a Vasquez?" And he goes, "You're not a Vasquez." So we were teasing each other about that all the time, and then we became good buddies. And we would hang out. We'd hang out at school. We'd hang out, go to the movies. We'd hang out. Well, Gregory was a bad influence on me. Bad influence. He's the one that started me smoking. So I started smoking when I was 16. I wish I wouldn't have done that. But it's here nor there, I did it. So one of the spooky things about my buddy Gregory, he almost killed me. so this story is pretty scary. So, on the migrant farm, like they're cinder block houses, and around the house itself, they got gravel, maybe 2 feet out from the wall. That's for drainage and stuff like that, so the water doesn't build up. So, one night, I heard this noise by my window, and I wasn't sure what that was about. So I grabbed my shotgun, because I graduated from a BB gun to a shotgun. My dad gave me a 12-gauge shotgun, and I went outside. It was late at night. Went outside investigating, looking around. Didn't see anything. So I came in and went in my room and put the shotgun. So as soon as you walked in the door, there was like some kind of dresser drawer or something. Anyway, I put my shotgun there. Didn't think anything of it. So we went and worked, did our thing, came home, got cleaned up, and Gregory came over. So we went into the room, my room, and there was a shotgun, and he just immediately grabbed the shotgun. He grabbed the shotgun, and he wrenched it. I didn't really realize that. He wrenched it. And see, I had shells in it, but I didn't wrench one to put it in there. But when he did it, he loaded one into the chamber. So he did that, and like I said, I wouldn't think anything about it. And the next thing you know, he takes the gun and he points it right at my head. And he said, "I'm going to shoot you." And I said, "Go for it. I don't care." I forgot. So,
See, because you thought it was empty.
because I thought it was empty. So, this little bird, we had a clothesline in the back of the house. Had a clothesline, and the curtains were open, and this little bird goes landing on this clothesline. And so he's got this shotgun pointed at me, and he looks and he sees this bird. He says, "Well, I'm going to shoot this bird first." And he turns around, points it, and pulls the trigger, and blows the window out. And we both look at each other, and he's got the shotgun, and and I'm the same way. I'm going like, that little bird saved my life. But I wouldn't be here because it was that little bird. If that little bird wouldn't have landed there, I wouldn't be here. He wouldn't be here.
None of us would be here.
Yeah, exactly. So, my dad hears the shot. He comes in, and he sees the window blown out. He looks at us, looks at the shotgun, picks up the shotgun, off he goes, and starts tearing it apart, piece by piece by piece. Take the shotgun apart. That was a close call for Mr. Vasquez. Just a little bird, bud. That was, cats have 9 lives. That was the first one I used up. I got saved by that one. So, we were cool. We got over it. But I didn't see my shotgun for at least 2 or 3 years before I got the shotgun back. And yeah, that was a very, very close call. Oh, what was another thing? My second close call was I had a 1973 Ford Mustang. It was pretty. Had a black Landau top, had this sparkly green, metallic green, and it was immaculate. It was perfect. So I got a call from this girl that wanted me to take her home. She was in this little town of Plymouth, and I was home, and she said, "Hey, I want to go home. Can you come and get me?" And this is a bar. She's in a bar. And I think, yeah, I was 18 at the time. So I could be in the bar as well. So I go in the bar, and I can't even think of the girl's name. I go in the bar, and she lived in a town called Shelby, which is probably about 15 minutes away. And so we decide, okay, she's ready to go. So I picked her up. I went in the bar, made sure she knew I was there, met with her, and then we walked out to my car. So a lot of things I didn't know. While she was in the bar, there was a group of guys that were hitting on her, trying to pick her up and this and that, and she didn't want anything to do with them. So
that
that's why
doesn't mean they were beating her. That means they wanted to be boyfriend girlfriend with her. Hitting on her is a phrase. I mean, they wanted to
get with her.
Yeah.
So anyway, we left, and I didn't know that. That was one thing I didn't know. So we take off to go to this little town, Shelby, and the next thing I know, I got this car on my tail end.
following you.
Yeah, it was following. It was right on my tail. And the next thing you know, the car beside me, and there's these 4 guys. And they're all screaming and yelling and doing all kinds of stuff. And saying all kinds of things. And I punch it. I take off. My Mustang. Said, I know I can outrun these guys. But I'm in an area that I'm not familiar with. I know the main road, but I don't know anything after that. So I decided to get brave, and I do a real quick zip. I turn to the left and go down this gravel road. And I mean, it's pure gravel, and it's out in the boonies. I don't know where I'm at, but I'm getting away from these guys. So I'm driving, and I'm going probably about 60 miles an hour.
On gravel?
Yeah. And the next thing you know, there's no more road. And I become airborne. Me and this girl are in my Mustang, and we're airborne. And I grab a hold of her, and I grab her and put her head on my chest, and I'm holding onto the steering wheel. And the next thing you know, it's like slow motion. The car is just flipping. And it lands on all 4s. Now, her side, the roof caved in on her side. And if I wouldn't have had her with me, the roof would have crushed her head. And there was only about this much opening on that side of her window. The roof came down, there was only about that much space. So she was holding on to my gear shift, and when we landed, she snapped it right off. And I was holding on to the steering wheel, holding on to her, and when we landed, my ribs hit my door and V'd my door. That's how hard we hit. And there's all kinds of dust and everything, and I'm saying, "You okay? You okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay." And it's not looking good. So up on the hill comes these guys. They're up on the hill, and then I can hear them screaming and yelling, and they come down, running down to where we're at. And they start kicking the car, and they're yelling at me, and they're going to kill me, and all this other stuff. So I'm just being cool, collected, and this guy's doing everything he can to get my door open. He's trying to open my door. Well, one guy, the big guy, was trying to open my door, and then the 2 other guys managed, I don't know how they did it, but they got the girl out on her side through that little crack. They got her out. I don't know how. So I got this big guy trying to open the door. Finally, he opens the door, and I'm sitting like this, and I turn, put my feet outside the door to get out, and then he grabs me by my hair and pulls my head up, and he's going to punch me. The other guy that was with him said, No, you can't do that. You can't do that. You got to take him back to his people. Because he knew me. He knew who I was. He didn't know that I was the guy that they were going after, or he wouldn't have participated. So he stopped the guy from punching me out. So they drag us up the hill. They throw her in the front seat, so the 2 guys are in the front with her. I'm in the back with the big dude, and my buddy, and the big dude keeps telling everybody, come on, let's just let me punch him out and then throw him in the ditch. And see, I kept pretending that I was kept knocking out. That's what I was pretending, but I was hearing everything that was going on, and he wanted to throw me in the ditch. He said, no, you gotta give him these people. So they take us back into Willard, and no, they first of all, we go back into Willard, and they go to this friend of mine, and his name is Fido, and he's a big dude. I mean, he's a big dude. So they go knocking on the door, and he comes out with a set of nunchucks. And he looks in the car, and he sees me, and I look at him and I say, help. And he looks at these guys, and he says, you guys got 2 minutes to get him to the hospital. He didn't say anything about the girl. He says, you got 2 minutes to get him to the hospital. So everybody jumps back in the car. Off we go to the hospital. And then the guy stops at the stop sign. The first stop sign he stops at, the big guy jumps out of the car. So they get to the hospital, and then here comes the people come out, and they have wheelchairs, and they wheel the girl in, and they wheel me in, and they got us in separate rooms, and they got me laying down on a gurney, and the girl got a cut underneath her eye, but she got that when they were dragging her out the window. That's how she got her eye cut. Me, I was just kind of beat up all the way around because my ribs were kind of screwed up, and I was jarred pretty good. So I'm laying there, and then the state trooper comes in there, and he starts asking me some questions like, what was this all about, this and that. I said, dude, I was just trying to take her home. That's all I was trying to do. And the trooper brought in the driver of the car. And he was standing there, and I'm laying on the gurney. And the trooper asked me, do you think this accident would have happened if they wouldn't have been following you, chasing you? I go, correct. I said, it wouldn't have happened if they wouldn't have done that. And so he started chewing this guy out. So anyway, they left. And then finally, somebody's coming to pick me up because they didn't admit me or anything. So I was laying on the gurney, and so I'm thinking my parents came and picked me up. So anyway, when I got up out of the bed, laying there, you could see an outline of the glass that came off me. There was like a body shape for all the glass. It just me laying there that fell off. And come to find out, these guys were, harassing this girl, and when I came in, that made them mad. So when I walked out with her, that's when they got together and said, we're going to go get him, we're going to mess him up. And they asked another one of my friends if he wanted to go, and he goes, what are you guys going to do? He goes, we're gonna mess this Mexican up. And he said, no, I'm cool. So all the story came out. So that was live number 2 that I managed to survive that one. It's just a strange thing. Like you said, the community, the way I grew up, the people I knew, it's like everybody knew what was going on. So 2 weeks later, when I was better, I had a little grudge. And you have to understand, I was pretty bold. I was strong. And I was what you would call a badass. So I went hunting for these guys. So the driver of the car, he left town. He just moved out. Gone. Nobody could find him. The one guy, he was kind of silent or whatever, But he was at the same bar, and I got wind of it. So I went to this bar, this same bar, and I go walking in there, and at the bar, all my friends are there. They're all lined up at the bar. And I'm thinking, like, nobody knew I was coming here. I didn't say nothing to anybody. But here's all my friends all lined up at the bar, and the first guy at the very first stool is sitting there, and he's all smiles. And I go, hi. And he goes like this. And he picks up his shirt, and he's got a gun. He's got a 45. Oh, okay. So here's this guy in the back playing pool. So I go over there to the pool table where he's at, and I look at him and said, remember me? And he goes, no, I don't remember you. I said, well, I remember you clearly, buddy. And he keeps walking away from me. And the next thing I know, the police come in. And now I'm the guy that's going to start the trouble. The police come in and get him and haul him out. And I'm the one, I was there to do some fighting. And the bartender saw what was going on, and he immediately called the police. And the police, they're only 2 minutes away. And they were there, and they knew this guy's name, and off he went. So that was guy number 2. The driver disappeared. Number 2, he got arrested, and I don't know whatever happened to him after that. The big guy, he got in some serious trouble. I think he tried to steal a shotgun out of one of the deputies' cars and got caught. And off he went. And then, sadly to say, the 4th guy, that is the one who recognized me and the one that told him to take him to his people, he committed suicide. So that's what happened. But I said that was number 2. That was number 2 of my list of many of don't do those things. But yeah, there were some trying times. There was a lot of challenges. So what time we have? Give me a time.
All right, let's see. It is 9 o'clock.
Exactly.
Cool. So this is the first part of the storytelling, but I will give you an opportunity to ask a few questions in regards to what I spoke about.
Oh, you said your dad was a truck driver, but there's lots of different kinds of trucks, so I'm not sure anyway. What kind of trucks are you talking about?
Semis. He would drive the semis with the cattle, and I used to go with him when I was young. And they had a electric shocker. I mean, now they got little things they call tasers. Well, these are actual shockers. They have all these batteries in them, and it's basically the same thing. And you touch the cow, and it'd shock him, and he'd run. And that's how they would unload the truck and load the truck and make the cows go back and forth with these shockers. I remember my aunt shocking my uncle one time.
With a cattle prod?
Yeah. Yeah, she didn't know what it was, and she was just joking around, and she stabbed him in the ribs with it and shocked him.
Oh.
She didn't know what it was. 2 little burn holes in him.
Wasn't too happy about that, probably, huh?
But he drove short bed, also onions and potatoes for the Stanball farm. But I remember we'd go to like Buffalo, New York, and we'd pick up all the hides from all the cows that got slaughtered. They'd load up the semi with all the hides. Then we'd take them someplace, and then they would go make shoes and whatever else they were going to do with them. But yeah, it was a nice adventure, and getting to see the country and getting to eat in restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because another thing that, like you said, another thing in regards to the house that we lived in, like, remember, it was concrete floors. We didn't know what carpeting was or whatever. And my mom, there was this lady that she sold mishmash stuff. I mean, she had, I don't know what you would call it, but she had a little warehouse type thing, and she had anything and everything: washing machine, stoves, whatever. I mean, you wanted it, she had it, or she'd get it.
She was 1960s version of Amazon.
Yeah. So my mom bought carpeting. She bought some carpeting, and nobody knew what to do with it. So we just rolled it out and got a knife and cut it around the edge, and we were in heaven. We were big shots now because we had carpeting, and so we had carpeting in the living room. Then we got it into my sister's room, Delia. She got the pink shag, which is about that thick. That was the thing then. And yeah, we started getting carpeting, and then the other migrants started getting carpeting and stuff in their houses. And the one thing that I remember was this Mexican guy came over, and he had a metal transition strip, and he drilled the hole and put the dowel rods in and cut the metal, put it there, and nailed it all in, and it was beautiful. And it was just like, I was in awe because I watched every step by step and go, this is amazing. How this just blows my mind. And little did I know, 30 years, 40 years later, I'd be doing a lot of them. Yeah, it freaks me out. Any other questions?
Did you have any other like pets or anything that you specifically remember?
Oh yeah, I remember. I had a little Benji, because Chato eventually disappeared. We think he got shot, but I got a little dog, like a Benji dog, and I called him Benji, and we'd have him chained up outside on the antenna pole tower, and you could see him all the time jumping up, looking in the window. Jump up, look at you. Say, come on, guys, come on out, come on out. So yeah, he was a cool little dog, and I went off to college and came back to visit, and my dad had some friends over, and you have to understand, we had a road. We didn't, and it was road and then grass to the house. There was no driveways or anything like that. So lots of times they would park the car close to the house. And my dad ran over Benji. He was sleeping underneath the tire, and my dad went to move the car and ran him. I was there when he ran him over, and I'm looking at him, and I'm yelling at my dad, "You ran over Benji." "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did. He's right there. You killed him." And he'd go over there and start kicking him. "Get up! Get up! Get up!" "He ain't getting up, Dad." Yeah, that was Benji. And then I had a little poodle, a little tiny miniature poodle, Fifi. That was my buddy Fifi. And Fifi, nobody could mess with me, because Fifi, I don't know, Fifi just loved me or whatever. Fifi would go to bed with me, and if you come in there and try to wake me up, Fifi would start biting at you. "Leave him alone, leave him alone." So one day, Fifi, I think I came from work or something, but Fifi was all excited, just jumping all excited and running back and forth. I go like, "What's your problem?" So I go into my room, and then Fifi goes under the bed, and then next thing you know, she's scooting with her nose a baby. She had a pup that I didn't even know she was pregnant. And she's scooting out this little baby pup about this big. Wanted to show me the puppy.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, who's the daddy? But oh yes, yeah. My mom used to get so mad because she'd come in my room and Fifi said, "No way, don't mess with him."
Yeah.
But we all had our dogs, and the strange thing is now, because I guess I had my fair share of dogs. Dogs aren't really my thing now. I mean, we got Bandit, and I don't spend a whole lot of time with him. I take him out, walk him for a minute, but I don't do the things that I've done with my other dogs. You know, and it's just kind of bizarre. Natalie and I were just talking about it the other day. But yeah, we had a rabbit. We called him Jack, and he lived in the house. And my dad loved him. He was a big boy, and he would just hop around the house doing his thing. You know, Chato would be there. Chato like, okay, whatever.
Did he have like a litter box or something? Or how did that work?
No. We just had to clean up his mess.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but he was cool. He was cool. We had turtles. We'd have those little painted turtles that only live like for 2 days. You know, here, eat this lettuce. I don't want lettuce.
That sounds like kale and the kids. This one anyway.
Oh,
Kitty, eat
so
it,
I didn't
kitty.
tell you about mealtime. I didn't tell you one because, you know, my mom, she made fantastic tortillas. And you have to understand, we were on a limited budget, and she did her best with what she could do. But when it was dinner time, you better be there. Because if you're not there, you're not eating. And she would have a stack of tortillas like this big. And we would be tearing them up, just eating tortillas right and left. And we get down to the last one, and then fight starts happening. I'll make some more. But no, yeah, beans, tortillas, and had a lot of eggs and tomato. That eggs and tomato stuff just didn't. I mean, it got old when I got older. And I told my mom, I said, "You got to stop making that." I said, because nobody's eating it. I mean, you make a big old bowl of it and nobody's going to eat it. I mean, it's just a waste of eggs and tomato. You know? Come up with something new.
Something different.
Yeah, you have to understand. I mean, there's so many things that I did not know. I mean, I bet you I didn't have Chinese food till I was in my 20s. I didn't know what Chinese food was. And, you know, certain ethnic foods and whatever, I just never heard of it.
That's funny.
So-
Zeke just asked for egg rolls for his birthday party the other day.
Yeah. I didn't know what egg roll was. And then I was excited when I got to share that knowledge with my siblings. So, guess what? I had Chinese. You guys never had it? I'm going to teach it to Chinese. Show you what it's all about. Yeah. That was an adventure. Any more questions? Did I get in fights with my brothers and sisters? Yes. Did we fight hard? Yes. We got into fisticuffs, no problem. I mean, I'm okay. I don't want you guys doing this, but I did. You know, I got mad at. I think it was Donnery. You have to understand, before I was working in the fields and the parents were gone, so it was just me and the siblings there at the house. And then my sister Delia, the oldest one, she was either doing something with her boyfriend, or she went, so put me in charge, and I was brutal. I was brutal to the other ones because I made sure the house was clean when my parents came home. I mean, everything was clean. You had to do this, you had to do that, and you didn't talk back to me. You didn't argue. You just did it. And I don't know. I got into one of the boys, either Daryl or Donnery, one of the two, and I told him, I said, "I'm done with you," and I went after him, and I grabbed a broom, and they were going running through the door, and they slammed the door, and I threw the broom, and the broom went right through the door like a spear. I go, ooh. How am I going to explain that one? Yeah. But the house is clean.
That's funny.
Maybe not from wood chips.
Yeah, I remember during the wintertime when my parents were working out in out the farm part. It was in the wintertime, and there was no school or it was a weekend. They told all of us, they said, nobody goes outside. Nobody. You stay inside. Well, I never listened. So I'm going like, I'm going to go outside. So out in the back, probably, I would say, here to maybe a little bit further from the bathroom, there was the cornfield. They had already harvested down, and there were snow drifts, and there was in between the rows was a path, probably as long as this room here, that there was ice there. So cool. So I'm running, I'm sliding, run, slide. This is great. I'm the only one out there. I'm just because I'm being defiant. So I'm out there running and sliding. Well, sure enough, Chato gets in my way. He causing me to trip, and I fall down, on this ice. And ooh la la, I tear my knee up. I got a nice little scar here. So I tore a nice little chunk, and so I hobble inside the house, and I tell my sister, and she takes a look at it, and she's turning white, because you could see the white inside. You could see the white. I mean, that's how deep it was. And so she goes to the neighbors to get him to see what he can do to help out. He comes over, he looks at it, he about passes out. And here I am, I'm going, oh, it ain't that bad. So they put some kind of something. It might have been straight alcohol, but it just like burned like crazy. And then they wrapped it up, and I'm there going, oh, no, what am I gonna do? And so sure enough, the folks came in, and my dad sees me over there, and he says, "What did you do?" I fell down on the ice, and I cut myself. Let me see it.
Oh boy.
Okay, let's go. So off we go to the doctor's office, and this doctor is like 100 years old. So his wife, who's the nurse, and my dad told me right off the bat, "You better not cry." I didn't cry yet. So they get me in there, and they put me in the chair with my legs out. Oh, it was brutal. The nurse has this little scrubby brush, and she got this iodine, and she's taking it, and she just like she's washing clothes. I'm like, oh, I'm just looking. Yeah, my dad, better not cry. And I'm shaking it off.
Oh.
So then the doctor comes in, and then he takes his big syringe, whatever, and starts shooting me up to numb it up. I mean, he's just picking up a flap and shooting underneath and doing this, doing that. And I'm going like, oh. And then he starts stitching me up, and I'm watching him do it. Cool, I'm good. So I can't bend my knee. I have to walk like a pirate for about a week. So I'm thinking something's not right, because I'm looking at it, and it's not healing the way it's supposed to, and it's kind of getting pussy, and I was like, this ain't cool. So I tell my dad about it, and he takes me back to the doctor. And so they put me there, and most of the stitches are pretty much gone. It's like maybe one stitch holding. That's how nasty it got. So the nurse, she takes and picks it up. So what had happened was when the doctor stitched it up and when the nurse cleaned it out, they didn't do a very good job. What they left was a piece of twig that was in there, and that's why I got infected. So here I go again, scrubbing. You better not cry. Okay. And now there's nothing to stitch it to anymore, because I mean it's pretty well shredded up. There's nothing you can sew. So what they have to do is a butterfly stitch. It's a like a Band-Aid. And so what she'd do is she'd take my skin on my knee here, and she'd get it and she'd stretch it to a certain point, and then she'd take the Band-Aid and tape it on there. And then if it held, it was cool. If not, you'd have to pull it again, try it again. So she did that for about 10 minutes. And I'm just going, oh. So finally she got a butterfly stitch. And again, I wasn't supposed to bend my knee. So I had to wait for about a week and a half. And it healed up. So that was pretty cool. But this is the same knee. Now this happened when I was probably in the 5th grade. But before that, this same knee here, on this migrant farm, there's like a parking area, and there was just a concrete barrier. And I used to, as kids, all the kids, we'd jump off. We'd jump off that, jumping off this thing is great, Well, now I think I was like 7 years old at the time, 7 or 8. And so I'm doing the same thing everybody else is doing. I'm jumping off too. Well, I jumped off and I landed on a beer bottle. And that was this knee. So that was the first time that I split it. And then I split it, a couple years later again. So this knee went through a lot.
Yeah.
I got more scars than all you guys together.
I don't got any scars.
Good for you. You don't want any. So, any other questions?
When you were like in school, did you go to school and then do like any work after, or was that like all the time?
That was only when I was in high school. That we'd work after school, and so during the summer we'd work full time, and then after school was when we loaded the trucks. But we'd work the weekends, and then for me, I was able to do the lawn mowing. I'd go after school, work 2 or 3 hours mowing the lawn, and did that every day, and so I was always generating some dollars. And gas was cheap too. Yeah, because there was 3 of us that had mini bikes. My dad got me a mini bike for my birthday, and mine had shocks on the back. Had shocks on them, and we had
basically.
And I can't remember what size engine I had, but it couldn't have been maybe a 4-cylinder, 5 horsepower, something like that. And we put gas in it, and we could ride everywhere. We rode all over the fields. We'd ride to this little village where they had a gas station there. So we'd ride there and get gas. Gas was a quarter. And we wouldn't even fill up a whole tank, So we just put like 6 cents in. We're good to go. Off running again.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right on.
Well, good. You can stop me now.
All right. There it is. Boop.